for the touchdown. It's through 50. He's got the speed. Touchdown.
Welcome into the latest Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara joined by the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, Rob Mosley. Much happier Mac and Mose today in terms of recapping an Oregon game. This one at Colorado. We talked about it a little bit last week, Rob, how early in the season or even before the season starts, you look at the schedule. Not a game that maybe jumps off the page at you, but this ended up being a massive game for Oregon because of the circumstances that happened with the such a lopsided home loss against Utah the week before.
Yeah, with the quarterback issues being what they were and so much uncertainty there, the secondary obviously dealing with some youth and having to make adjustments there. A lot of unknowns going into that Colorado game. And through the first half, probably all those same questions were still relevant. But to see the Ducks, sort of their patented, a couple of patented elements of Oregon football for the last few years, to play well in the second half and the third quarter in particular, and also to run the heck out of the ball. You saw that in the second half at Colorado. So sort of a return to the Ducks' identity of the last few years, kind of the pre-Mariota years. And now we'll see if that sort of becomes, that stamp is put on this team for the rest of this season as we move forward.
Well, you talk about getting back to Oregon running the football. We've seen it in years past with LaMichael James and Kenyon Barner, where the Ducks essentially are telling the opposition, hey, we're going to run it right at you. We're going to do this, and they'll do it the same running play 3 or 4 times in a row. Well, they got back to that a little bit against Colorado. What allows them to do that, however, is the defense doing their jobs, and also the Ducks not turning it over on offense and then capitalizing and getting some turnovers on defense. Despite the fact that this was kind of a dicey start for Oregon, they took the early lead, but then they gave it up and had to fight back a couple times. Once they got ahead in the second half, you felt like, okay, they can control the game now by running the ball virtually every down.
Yeah, I thought kind of the defense got off to a similar start as it did actually in the Utah game. The offense was sort of spinning its wheels in both games early on, and the defense had to make some plays to keep the Ducks in it. Against Utah was to force a couple early field goals, and then things really got away from the Ducks on both sides of the ball and special teams as well. Whereas in this case, defense makes a few plays, gives the offense the first half to sort some things out, and then really both sides of the ball, everything clicks in the right way after halftime this time, because the job the front seven did getting after Lufau, the Colorado quarterback, basically shutting down the run game, was really impressive to see.
DeForest Buckner, had another outstanding game. He draws a lot of attention there. But what we haven't seen in the past is when DeForest is double teamed for one of those other guys to get free. This game it was Balducci. Tuitalia had some really big plays early in the game, and then Henry Mondu ends up with his first career sack in this game as well. So
recovered the fumble that Hardrick forced.
Yeah, and Rodney Hardrick, who has been a senior leader on this team, but statistically maybe his numbers haven't quite backed up his experience level to this point. He really had one of his better games in an Oregon uniform.
Yeah, I think he tackles and forcing that fumble, a couple tackles for loss, I believe. Happy for him, because he's a guy, who behind the scenes does everything right. And but in order for sort of the public at large to respect that, you need to produce and make plays on the field. So for him to have the night he did was really nice to see, because he's one of the guys who does everything the right way and really set the tone. I mean, Colorado wanted to run between the tackles. You want your middle linebacker to be a guy who accepts that challenge and leads you defensively, and he did that.
Offensively, a quarterback rotation that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. Jeff Locke starts the game. Taylor Alley comes in, Locke back in, Alley. Usually, when that is happening in a football game, it's not good.
Yeah.
There's problems. This really wasn't the case for Oregon. The coaches talked about how it was in the plan that they were going to give Taylor Alley a longer look earlier in the game and in a more meaningful situation. And he missed on a couple of throws. He had Braylon Addison open on some deep routes down the sideline twice and overthrew him both times. Now, you certainly would rather see a young quarterback overthrow his receiver than underthrow him and risk a turnover. But as the game progressed, he got more comfortable. He's always been comfortable running the ball. I thought he did a really nice job of running the option. He knew when to pitch it. He actually took a 2-yard loss on a play instead of forcing it, which you love to see. And then by the end, he was, when the comfort level started to get there, he hits Jaylen Brown on a perfect pass to end the game and essentially put the game away, I guess I should say. That gave Oregon a big lead in the fourth quarter that Colorado was unable to come back from.
Yeah, I made mention a couple times during the game. You refer back to Bill Musgrave, who sort of was the quarterback when Oregon turned things around and set the stage for the golden age that the Ducks are enjoying now. Had sort of a marquee start as a freshman at Colorado. He was from Colorado. And hey, maybe the stage is set for Taylor Alley to jumpstart a great Oregon career with a game at Colorado too. This is not preferable. You want a quarterback, and Vernon Adams was the guy who was brought here to quarterback this team. But this is coaching. You've got to find a way to push the right buttons to get yourself through in times of adversity. You saw the Ducks have to do it last year with all the offensive line injuries and all the rest that were troubling them early on, and coming off the Arizona loss last year. Again, coming off the loss to Utah with certain things being quite precarious. Your coaching staff needs to push some different buttons, push the right buttons, and between the things you saw offensively, some of the the trick play, the quarterback rotation, the use of the running game, more Taj Griffin, and then defensively simplifying some things, really helping the young secondary keep everything in front of them, avoid too many of the explosion plays that have rocked them earlier in the year. I think you got to give kudos to the staff for pushing a lot of the right buttons this week.
I think, too, one of the things that we're able to see by being behind the scenes so much, on the surface, you may say, boy, that's got to be herky-jerky. How are these guys dealing with it? But both Jeff and Taylor, they check their egos at the door. And if any player can deal with just sort of the uniqueness, if you will, of coming in and out of a game and not necessarily, I'm sure they had a better idea of when things were going to happen,
right.
But there was no brooding, everybody was supporting one another, and that frankly helped this work, because otherwise, if you have different personnel, if you have guys that are unable to mentally sort of wrap their mind around the fact that it's just not their job only, and until they get hurt or otherwise, it was kind of I guess a very unique situation for Oregon, and they have the right guys doing it.
I think Mark Helfrich has made the comment a couple of times when this team has suffered defeat and dealt with some adversity the last few weeks. Hey, as long as we're all in this together and committed to the goal and working together, things will work out. And you look at some other situations across the country where some teams are having some struggling. You see guys sniping at each other, or staffs, staff changes being made already, things like that. And Mark Helfrich has always been big on it. Trust the process, stay in this together, work together. And they're trying to get through these issues again, that, continue to dog the team, but, you got to keep pushing on and trying to push the right buttons.
41-24 was the final score in this one. Oregon over Colorado. The Ducks improved to 27-0 when they score 30 points or more. So much is always made of the defense. Every time something goes poorly or there's a loss, the defense is to blame. But if you're winning every single game, you score 30 points, that means you can give up 29 and you're still going to win. So the offense, this was a week that they needed to get their act together, and even maybe down their number one quarterback, they were able to do so. Vernon Adams has said today, we taped this on a Monday, that he wants to be out there, but he's not going to force the issue until he's 100%. So there's still some uncertainty maybe going forward, at least in the coming week when the Ducks face Washington State at Autzen Stadium. That's a 3 o'clock kickoff on Pac-12 Networks. If you haven't seen it, the Ducks will be debuting their Oregon Pioneer uniforms, new uniforms from Nike that feature Lewis and Clark and the Duck on the helmet. Different elements, different part of the Oregon Trail, I guess, on each jersey, so they'll be different, and a lot of people love them. There's probably an equal amount of people that don't.
It's an Oregon uniform, so, yes.
No school colors, and to the school colors crowd, come on now, it's Oregon football. The tradition is to be untraditional, and if you really want to go school colors, it's navy and gold, I think, is what they wore back in the day. So just please stop.
The other one is, hey, players, the Ducks need to be worried about how they're doing on the field. Believe me, the players and coaches have not been wasting any time designing these uniforms.
Exactly, and they're not, they weren't at their computers at 6 a.m. this morning waiting for the reveal. So get off my soapbox now. We will preview the Washington State game coming up later in the week. We have a kickoff time to report also for the road game against the Huskies in Seattle. That's going to be a 7:30 kickoff. That's an October 17th game. It's the game after the home game this week against Washington State. 7:30 kickoff on either ESPN or ESPN2. In the meantime, if you want to come at me for my school colors comment or anything else,
at McNamara UO.
Please do so. At McNamara UO on Twitter. He is at Duck Football. Until next time, we'll see you.
Gets the corner into the end zone for the touchdown. It's through 50. He's got the speed. Touchdown.